Okay, we're going to call the November 16th meeting to order. Roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Vakulik? Here. Mr. Murray? Here. Mrs. Kiefer?
Here. At this time, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we do have an addition to our agenda. We need to add an executive session to consider the employment of public employees, Ohio Revised Code 121.22, that we will add. So I need a motion to approve the change to the agenda for our regular board meeting, November 16th, 2020.
So moved. Support.
Roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik?
Yes.
Mr. Murray? Yes. Mrs. Kiefer?
Yes, motion carries. This time I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting held on October 19th, 2020.
So moved.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vakulik?
Yes.
Mr. Murray? Mrs. Kiefer?
Yes, motion carries. Is there any board members with correspondence? No, Ms. Lou, so we'll go right to Mrs. Lou and you? Nothing? Okay. Mr. Malone, will you continue recognizing our guests and visitors?
We have a few guests with us today. I would ask you to please introduce yourselves, starting over there with our students. Brady Roofer.
Tony Dole.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Seeing that we have no registered, anybody to register to address the board, we'll continue on with our financial and treasurer's reports.
On behalf of Mrs. Liu, I have information regarding the 5-year forecast, which was on the agenda for you to approve this evening. The forecast for fiscal year 21 has improved since the May update due to 3 things: better than expected income tax return, higher than expected foundation funding, and decreased personnel costs because of the RIF that took place earlier this year. As always, the forecast has been prepared as conservatively as reasonably possible, but we are dealing with more than the usual amount of uncertainty, which requires close monitoring of the following resources of revenue. One of them being pipeline revenue, which is shown on line 1.02 PTP of the PUP report. This has been estimated at the lowest we are likely to get if the pipeline wins their appeal, but could significantly be higher if they lose their appeals. Appeals will not be heard until late spring, so that is yet to be determined. Income tax revenue, which is shown on line 1.03, was forecast too low, and this line item has been corrected upwards. For the first 2 collections of the fiscal year, we are down about 9% from the same 2 collections last year. Withholding taxes were down 18% from the same 2 collections last year, which is a concern, especially if there's another shutdown or slowdown this winter. Depending on what actually happens in the economy over the next few months, this line item will need to be closely monitored and possibly adjusted once again. Third item to look at is the state foundation funding, which is shown on line 1.035, was funded this year at basically the reduced amount we received last year, with the caveat that there could be mid-year funding cuts depending on how state revenues come in. Given the current statewide situation with COVID, a similar cut is definitely not out of the question for this year. A modest potential reduction has been factored into this line item, but may not be sufficient depending on circumstances at the state level. Expenditures overall, with the exception of transfers, advances, expenditures are forecast slightly lower than in May. And the last item she wanted us to look at potential transfers from the general fund are shown on line 5.01. And project transfers being necessary throughout the forecast to food service and to a lesser extent athletics. Hopefully post-COVID measures can be taken to improve the profitability of food service, but it should be assumed that some level of support will be necessary throughout the forecast. All in all, while deficit spending is projected in each year of this forecast and the fund balance continues to decline, if the district is able to renew both of the income levies that will expire during this forecast period, a $3.7 million balance is still projected at the end of fiscal year 25, and the district remains on solid financial footing. If you have any questions, I may or may not be able to answer them on her behalf.
I got one just for fun.
Yes.
See if you can answer it or not. With the free lunches, how all the students are getting free lunches now, how does that impact the food fund?
It is helping, but I don't believe it's going to get us out of the debt.
Okay. I was under the impression it was helping, but when I looked at the transfer, I'm like, boy, that was still a substantial amount of money. So, okay, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion on those? Okay. We'll move on to our financial reports. We need a motion to approve the October 2020 financial reports, as well as a motion to accept the following grants for fiscal year 21 and to amend resources and modify appropriations accordingly. Public Schools Connectivity Grant, $5,400. Public Schools Purchase Program Grant, $28,785.47. Expanding Opportunities for Each Child Grant, $2,406.42. We need to approve the following federal grant fund carryovers amounts for fiscal year 20 grants to 21 grants and to amend resources and modify appropriations accordingly. That would be to increase Title I, $974.27. Increase Title II-A, $4,337.48, and to increase IDEA fee, $7,811.92. We need to approve a revised auxiliary service agreement with the Educational Service Center of Lake Erie West for 2020-2021 school year in the amount of $72,563.04 for services of auxiliary service personnel for the benefit of Holy Trinity Schools and to amend resources and modify appropriations accordingly. We also need to transfer $12,015.04 from House Bill 264 PI and $85,749.46 from the PI. These will pay the debt payments for the House Bill 264 Energy Conservation Project. We need to refund Series 2001 bond principal and interest of $674.48. Refund Series 2002 bond principal and interest of $135,025.50. The Series 2010 House Bill 264 Energy Conservation Bond principal and interest of $97,764.50. We also need to approve the following fund-to-fund advances and to amend resources and modify appropriations accordingly. $705.61 to the Title III LEP, $47.68 to the ECSE Preschool Disabilities Grant, and appropriation modifications, $1,810.49 for SOS Coordinator. Also an increase of $253.47 also for the SOS program for STRS. SOS Coordinator also for $1810 for the STRS BDPU. SOS Coordinator Medicare, $2625. Increased Tournament Event Workers CERT for $807. Increased Tournament Event Workers STRS for $100.80. Increased Tournament Event Workers Medicare, $12.62. Increased Tournament Purchase Services of $150. We need to accept the following donations. We had an anonymous donation of $200 to the Student Assistance Fund. We need to approve a new student activity fund for the Evergreen eSports. We need to approve the 5-year forecast that we just went over to the Ohio Department of Education by November 30th. We also need to approve depository agreements for the following banks for active and interim funds. for January 1st through December 31st at State Bank and Metamora State Bank.
So moved.
Support.
Questions or discussion? All right, roll call.
I have a quick question. For G appropriation modifications, are most of those, the tournament event workers, was that for soccer?
I believe it was,
Okay.
but I can verify.
And the Evergreen esports, have they been up, have they been, we're gonna approve a new activity fund for them. Have they been up and operational at all?
They won their first two
Oh, they have.
contests
Okay,
against
they've
the
been meeting, I
school.
didn't know they had that.
Yeah, they're competing already.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Roll call.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vaculik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. And move on to personnel. We need to offer the following supplemental contracts and approve volunteers for the 2020-2021 school year, pending the completion of all people activity permit requirements. Garrett Damon, 7/8 assistant boys basketball volunteer. Clint Barnes, high school golf coach volunteer. Dylan Hendricks, JV baseball coach. Rudy Corpus, assistant wrestling coach volunteer. We need to rescind and approve supplemental contracts for 2020-2021. Douglas DeSlover, rescind 12th grade advisor. Christy Hennessy, high school student council half. Megan Anstead, high school student council half contract.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, or I'm sorry, any discussion? No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Vaculik,
Yes.
Mr. Murray, Mrs. Kiefer.
Yes, motion carries. At this time, Mr. Simola, would you like to take over discussion and information?
Yes, treasurer, getting a treasurer bond versus insurance. This is also from Mrs. Lou. Until fairly recently, treasurers were required by law to be bonded. House Bill 291 changed that requirement, and now a Board of Education can elect to have the treasurer covered under the district's employee dishonesty policy. With the employment of a new treasurer, the board will need to decide on one of the three following options. Continue to have the treasurer bonded, continue the bond and cover him on the district insurance policy, or the third option is have both a small bond and include him on the district's insurance policy. A number of districts have moved to option 3 to provide the maximum protection for both the district and the treasurer. This is what Mrs. Lou recommends the board decide. The difference in cost to the district would be minimal. If you choose the insurance route, either by itself or in combination with a bond, you will need to approve a resolution at the December board meeting prior to the effective date of the new treasurer's contract, which will be January 1st of 2021. So she just wanted to get it out there, the three options, and you wanted to discuss it or look into what was best, but she recommends the bond with the insurance.
That was 3.
That was option 3, yes.
What's the cap on the dishonest employee? I don't have to do that tonight. That would be, how much would they pay out in the case of dishonest?
400,000.
Okay.
And that is another discussion item that goes right along with this, that when Mrs. Lou was looking into this, upon the recommendation of our insurance carrier, Highland Administrative Services, she is recommending we increase our employee dishonesty, computer fraud, and fund transfer fraud limits to 400,000 and an annual premium increase of $462. Right now, I believe they're at 50,000, so we can bump it up to 400,000 for $462 a year, which she was planning to do unless we heard differently tonight.
And how much have we traditionally had?
I do not know that answer.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay,
When do we need to decide on which one of those to do?
December, it will be a
Next
resolution.
meeting.
so, but it'd be good to have the option right now. So would you guys like to see those three in an email,
I will email and it'll go directly into the minutes.
I thought we had it for some reason.
the three options? No, I think she just wrote those up for you tonight, right?
No.
I believe it was in the update she sent this week to board
We had them on
members.
email. I reviewed them.
This one?
I believe it came when she sent you the assumptions with the 5-year forecast.
Yeah. It was It's a side note, I think.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't see it in, okay,
But I have this, I will resend it as well.
okay, and then that way we can have that exact option on there for our motion. Does she need anything to raise that insurance to 400,000?
No, that was more of an informational piece that she intends to
Okay,
move that up to protect the district.
For the record, I'm in favor of number 3, doing both.
as well.
I don't think it's probably good to be covered from a couple different angles if possible.
Okay. Tentative district calendars.
We had put forth the tentative calendar last month at the board meeting to get any public input. We have not received any, so there are no changes to the calendar. The calendar will be on the December agenda for board approval as it reads today.
Any further discussion or information? No. All right, so we will move on to Mr. Miller.
Fire upgrades are getting worked on right now. We are almost done with the high school, middle school. Some parts were malfunctioned when they came in, so they are waiting for those parts to be replaced. Once those are replaced, then we'll get fire marshal in here to approve the system. Once they're approved, then we'll go down to the elementary and bus garage and finish up those projects. The roofing is complete down to elementary. They're doing metal work and gut work right now. There's probably a couple more weeks they'll need to finish that up. All the stuff that was on the roof and it still is there, that's they no longer need, is being picked up this week. The concrete for the batting cages out back is framed up. They're ready to pour that, but I don't know when they're going to pour. The concession stands are drained, ready for winter. The winter equipment, this new snow plows for the truck is here. All the equipment is ready except for the salt spreader, which is getting worked on this week. And then I received quotes for a new garbage service, and we're working on getting everything switched around for that.
Timeline on the outdoor LEDs for completion.
Okay.
I know they're putting the
Yeah.
poles up.
They're finishing up poles right now, and they should be done, I would think, this week. So, hopefully.
You said the plow is gonna be fitted on the truck and then, but
The plow was already fitted on the truck. Yeah.
What's the gentleman's name who's helping with the lawn?
Jason,
He's doing an outstanding job.
good, thank you.
I
I'll
had
let
some
him
of some of the JV games, football games, I'll walk around and pick up trash before the game. There's been almost none, which prior to that, there had been,
Right.
a water bottle and 10 different pieces, so you have to pick up 10 pieces, but he's doing a really noticeably good job.
I will let him know that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Miller? All right, thanks, Brett. Mr. Smola.
I want to touch on our COVID-19 numbers. Overall, we're in pretty good shape. The cases and quarantine numbers continue to increase. As of today, here is where we stand with positive cases. We currently have 1 student in the elementary and 4 district employees who have tested positive. As far as quarantined individuals go, we have 8 district employees that are quarantined right now outside of the 4 that had tested positive. At the elementary, we have 37 students who are quarantined, 19 in the middle school, and 10 in the high school, so a total of 56 for the entire district. We currently have adequate staff to continue on-campus instruction and have no plans to move to remote learning unless numbers go up drastically or we are ordered to close through a government mandate or public health orders. Wanted to get the numbers out there to all of you that in the grand scheme of things, I think we've been pretty lucky and our numbers are manageable right now. Hopefully they continue, hopefully they go down and we stay on campus. That decision may be taken out of our hands with some rumors we've heard about, potential government mandate to close schools between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We don't know where that's at.
Eric, have we had any trouble with substitutes? I see some districts have been spread kind of thin in terms of getting substitutes.
Yes.
We have-
Every district in the area has struggled with subs. There's days we can get them and others we cover internally.
Yeah.
Next item I wanted to touch on was the Viking Virtual Academy. Today, current VBA families received second semester registration. Second semester registration will be open through Friday, November 20th. Prior to the recent increase in COVID cases in the county, many VBA families expressed interest in having their children return to in-person instruction beginning in January. The COVID increase will most likely have a direct impact on the number of current VBA students that want to remain in that program. We expected most to come back. I think that may change. Having a general knowledge of how many students will be returning to either the VBA platform or returning to in-person instruction will determine whether we continue to have the same number of teachers dedicated for the online students. So survey went out today to see, are they planning to stay on the remote or are they looking to come back in January? So we will adjust staffing accordingly. Any questions on the virtual academy? And then graduation design lab 3.0. Beginning with this year's 9th grade students, we are required by law to develop individual graduation plans for each student and success plans for any at-risk student not graduating high school. Graduation plans are developed in collaboration with the student, parents, and the high school team. Plans are revisited each year to evaluate progress towards graduation. We are working to develop a graduation plan and success plan template that best meets the needs of our students. So this is a new government requirement that we are getting in place this year that will follow students for their 4 years, making sure that they graduate on time or have a plan to help students who are at risk of not graduating on time. Any questions about that or any other items pertaining to the district?
All right. Any board members with questions or concerns? All right, so at this time, need a motion for the members of the Evergreen Local Board of Education Superintendent, Treasurer, and invited guests to go into executive session for the following reasons: to consider the employment of public employees, Ohio Revised Code 121.22.
So moved. Support.
All right. There'll be no action after. So, students, you guys can have your paper signed, give them to Mr. Curtis. Otherwise, we're all set. You picked a good meeting, boys.
Cody, you were here the whole time though, so don't count, man.